For this series of ACEOs, I decided to try doing an assembly line. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound like it'd be a fun way to do it, but it is actually much more efficient for me. And I actually didn't mind doing it that way. For all 10 cards, first I penciled them all, and then I went back and erased all of them. Then I went back and inked all of them, and then I went back and watercolored them all. What it does is it allows you to, or for me, it allowed me to focus on each media and not have to switch gears so quickly. So in other words, just go ahead and get your pencil drawings done, and you're in that mode, that thought process of let me just sketch these guys out real quick. And then when you're doing the inking, you start thinking about your shading and your form and all that good stuff too. And then when I got to the watercolor, I was able to focus entirely on watercolor and thinking about how much color to put down and how much to leave out and how much to pull back. And so it kind of, for one thing, these ACEOs, you know, if you don't know, they're baseball card sized. It's very easy to do a lot of them in a short period of time. And because of that, I was able to experiment with watercolor a lot more than I would say with one piece and see the results of it quickly and then learn a lot and then move on. Even with trying to be efficient, it took about 5 days for me to finish all 10 of these cards. So about a day's worth of drawing them, because, you know, I needed to find references for all 10 cards and then list them out and make sure that I stay on track of what I'm doing. And this is also while recording it all. So I got to set the phone up and hit record. And so my wife asked me, like, how are you even going to connect them all together? So, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw them all, hit record, and then just piece them all together. It's a little bit of finagling, but I was able to, when I drew them all, I took all of those videos and separated them into their own little folders. And then I basically grabbed the pencil, the ink, and the watercolor for each animal and stuck them all together as individual shorts. And now I put it together for this long video. So it took me about 5 days because I had to, day one was like penciling and erasing back. And then day two was inking for the most part. And I think day 4 and 5, it was watercolor because it takes a lot. I mean, it's a lot of work to watercolor them for one, but it's also like, it's a lot of sitting down and physically sitting still. I prefer to stand most of the time, but sometimes I have an issue where I can't stand for very long periods of time. So I have to sit down a lot and it wears my arm out and I get cramped. So I was trying to get up and move around a little bit. And then, anyway, it takes time to do. I'm also like, I don't like to rush. I do like to go through stuff, but I do enjoy the process of doing it. So I'm not trying to just crank it out. I'm not a printer, you know, so I'm just trying to enjoy the process as well, but also be efficient and mindful of my time. And but it taught me how to deal with watercolor and how I want to use it. And a lot of people use watercolor and it looks like what it reminds me of. And this is not a dig. It's actually just it's an observation. The way that most people do watercolor, or at least the way that I see most people do it, it's not very opaque. It's quite pastel. It's very washed out looking because that's what watercolor is intended to look like, right? But because of these cards being so small and that Derwent is very, very pigmented, it's very heavy colored, really pretty. And it does allow you to blend out and use water, obviously, to stretch it out, but it almost gets into the gouache land. It starts getting really, really heavy. It's still transparent, but it's kind of forgiving in some ways where, you know, you can wet your brush, you know, wash it off, get all the pigment off of it, and then just wipe it off with the towel real quick and leave it just slightly damp. And you can use it to lift the watercolor pigment off the paper and almost erase it back a little bit. And I started using that, like with the Siamese cat, I started using that as a way to kind of start really pushing a pale blue and letting the white kind of push through to kind of give me the color of blue that I needed. And so it's very forgiving, like I said. Like you can lay it down and almost erase it back. I mean, you can't completely pull the pigment off once you've laid it down, but you can get pretty close. And as long as you're mindful of that, then it works really well in your favor. It's very, I guess it says forgiving. It's a very forgiving medium. I didn't think I was very good with it, and I wasn't. It just takes a little bit of practice. And this was a really cool way to get practice in because I'm knocking out ACEOs that are possibly going to get bought by somebody on eBay, and I'm getting my time in. So now I've had the opportunity to experiment with a bunch of different media that I have and decide which one I think is best to do this with. I really love doing the ink with watercolor, and I can see why people love doing gouache as well for illustration because it does act like watercolor, but it's heavier, it's thicker, and then you can thin it out just like watercolor. I mean, you can push it way, way, way thin if you'd like. So it's a little bit more versatile, I feel like, in some ways. But then watercolor, I don't know, and you can use them together. And watercolor is, I used to think of it as more of a, entry level. I mean, years ago, I'm talking when I was younger. I was a youngin'. I used to think it was more like an entry level medium, but it's definitely not. It's some pro level stuff. To get the kind of quality results that some people get with watercolor, you really have to know what you're doing. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near that. I just got to where I'm comfortable with using it now. I'm happy with the results that I get. And it's kind of like almost like a marker look to it, which I love, but you get to lay the color down quickly. So I'm going to try doing gouache for the next one. And instead of using straight gouache, I think I'm going to try thinning it out with water as I go and treating it more like watercolor and seeing, because before I was trying to treat it like acrylic, the gouache, but now I'm going to try and see if I can treat it like water. And I just want to see what happens. So yeah, I mean, all I have is a Derwent set. It's a very, very small. I think it's 12 colors. And I use quite a bit of white, actually, because it doesn't quite blend. It stacks. And I know some of the colors do blend together pretty well, but the colors do stack. Once you move it around you can blend it with water, but the white, it tends to want to sit on top and dry. So if you're not careful with how much white you use, you can create like a frosting effect, but that can be a good thing. Obviously, it depends on what it is you're trying to do. It's just something to be aware of if you're using the white. It's quite opaque, actually. It's more semi-transparent. It's actually probably the most opaque of the colors, and in terms of layering, when you start layering the colors on top of each other, that and like the black. But the darkest color, ironically enough, the whitest color, white itself, is kind of more opaque. So I'm interested in seeing if I can get the gouache to behave a little bit more like watercolor now that I have experience with it, enough experience I feel like to mess with the gouache and see where it takes me. And so the next set of the series I'm going to do is going to be puppers. I'm going to do canids, dogs. I'm going to do domesticated breed dogs next. And then I have plans to do large cats and large dogs as well, and some other stuff. I think I might do some lighthouses and stuff. And, I do all kinds of, I don't know if you noticed that or not, but I do anything. The animals, landscapes, I don't care. People, doesn't matter to me. I just want to see where it all takes me. And hopefully you enjoyed that. And hopefully it was useful to someone. Catch you next one. Peace.